So we're back, and we're ready to start now with item 5E, social services, social housing, please. And turn to your right. So we're back, and we're ready to start now with item 5E, social.
Thank you. And through the chair to the budget committee members. So included in social services budget is also the social housing. So the City of London is the service manager as established within the Housing Services Act, responsible for administering community social housing on behalf of the province. Housing Services is responsible for the administration of social housing subsidies, supplements, and various housing programs. Program compliance, supporting the long-term sustainability of all subsidized housing providers, and policy and program development. The city supports community social housing sites that include public, non-for-profit, private, and cooperative housing that requires ongoing operational subsidies to adjust rental costs. There are 674 city-supported community housing units within Middlesex County, including 294 that are rent geared to income. The city owns and operates public housing through the London Middlesex Housing Corporation, so LMCH. They provide 3,282 housing units across 32 properties for more than 5,000 people. Of these units, 159 are located in the county. Those who call MLCH home are a diverse cross-section of low to moderate income households, including families, seniors, adults, and new Canadians. The housing portfolio in Middlesex County includes, we have 25 senior units, 108 adult units, and 26 family units. So Middlesex County does work in partnership with the city, whether it's the Housing Capital Program, the Ontario Renovates Program, the Housing Supplements, and we also have a member of the City of London Social Housing Operational Advisory Committee, and that is either Joe or myself. And we've also implemented quarterly, myself, Joe, and Dirk also meet with senior administration and housing and homelessness, just to discuss ongoing issues. And we also have the MOC committee, and that meets on a quarterly basis, and that includes 2 members of council and myself and other senior staff as well. So a couple of the pressures, and I've taken some of these from things that we know ourselves or from the last presentation from the City of London. So the population growth in both the City of London and the County of Middlesex, and I think we've all heard about the growth happening and of course the impacts of that on all of our housing, especially our attainable and our social and low affordability housing. We have new Housing Services Act regulations requiring all community housing projects that have reached their end of mortgage to enter into a service agreement or exit agreements with the service manager. And the City of London has recently done a presentation to their council, and we'll make sure that gets on the county council as well. We have increasing capital repair costs and investment. We have the increased concerns of community safety, and in the past you've seen costs for safety that they put in their budget. And then of course at Middlesex County, we had the housing attainability study that we did. And some of the big things that were highlighted in that study were the rental costs. And I know we've had lots of discussions around the table that we just don't have a lot of available rental units. We also have the majority of new home construction for the county has been focused on low density, mostly single unit residential homes. And again, when we're looking for that mix of housing, we still have a ways to go. So some opportunities, we're going to be talking about that shortly. So one of our, again this year, we've implemented business plans. So the business plan will be the Attainable Housing Implementation Plan, and that'll be next on the agenda. And also working with the City of London, I mentioned that we've started additional meetings, but really leveraging. So they are making, I would say, probably some transformational changes in what they are doing for housing. Obviously, they're a very large municipality and they're seeing the impacts on that. But I always say things are a trickle-down effect. So we do see those things, maybe not the same year they see it, but very shortly after. So we really need to understand what they're doing, What are the best practices, whether it's the City of London, or we can look at our neighbors, St. Thomas, or some other areas and say, okay, are those things that we can do? So if we can partner and learn from them and leverage, that would be great. So we are also looking forward to doing that. So if you go down and you look at the social services budget, on the expense side, it's on the very bottom, and it's got its own category. Its own category is called social housing. So you will see that the budget is $7.4 million for 2025. And if you look at that compared to 2024 budget, which was a little over 6.8 million. So that's an increase of approximately $596,000 or 8.24%. So as I mentioned before, the biggest increase that you're seeing in social services is really around that social housing. And I will point out, because we do have an agreement with the City of London. So our funding on that is weighted assessment. It's a combination of weighted assessment and actual units. So that's divided by weighted assessment at 70 and actual units at 30. And I'm willing to answer any questions that you may have regarding that. I do want to point out that where I get the amount from, it comes directly from the City of London. So they just provide the amount, very similar to we provide a budget for land ambulance to the City of London.
Thank you. Yes, I'm sorry,
through the chair. So just remind me, our year to date, is that like to the end of September or end of October, these numbers we're looking at?
Through the chair to the councillor, that is till September. So it's not projected to the end of the year, but I'm expecting that the full amount will be this
It'll
year.
land close.
Yes, not like the previous year.
Yeah, because was there not a million difference swing last year or not that much?
Yes, last year there was.
Previous year.
Yes, there was, but from all indication, I don't see that happening this year, so.
Other questions? Excuse me, sir. I don't see any hands. So did you want to, we can move on to the other, so this is the Attainable Housing and Implementation Plan and Housing Advocate Funding Business Case, and Dirk Wendiger is going to present that report.
Before we get started on that, can we receive the social services?
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. Yeah. So I need a mover and a seconder. Yes. Okay. Michelle and Sue and all in favor, and that is carried. Yeah. Sorry about that. Sorry, my voice is.
Okay, thank you through the chair, and I'll start, but it's a collaborative effort. So Joe and Cindy will of course chime in if I miss anything, or as we get to the financial stuff at the end. I think Cindy's going to cover that. So the budget committee, you know this. You've seen the attainable housing review that was undertaken. You saw the housing implementation report that was presented to council a few months ago, and at that time, council selected for budget consideration the housing advocate role for consideration. So at a very high level, the business case would involve that role where staff would recommend that it be at least a 3-year project. We think it needs to have a bit of time to actually develop and for the outcomes to occur. But at a high level, it really would be the hiring of a dedicated staff person, some limited programming funds, and that role would involve the collaboration between county council, local municipalities to develop housing support programs, and it's complementing the services provided by the City of London as a service manager. So it's not instead of that. In terms of background, I won't hit it all because you've of course had time to review the report, but you know that we've experienced a lot of, as a fast growing region, I think the housing issues are becoming more acute here, and things that were perhaps only in a larger urban setting in the past are now felt across the county in our communities. The report does give a high-level review, just to highlight again that the housing system in Ontario is complex. There's 4 levels of government involved. There's the not-for-profit, there's the private sector, and the City of London, this bears repeating, are the designated service system manager, I often get that wrong, for Middlesex under the Housing Services Act. And so they have accountabilities, they're outlined in the report, responsibilities, and so this would be in addition to that role. The Attainable Housing Review on the page 94 of the document does I think it's a really good start. There's 21 priorities, if you will, that would be basically sets out, in my view, the basis of the 3-year plan. You would work through those with that person that's hired. The housing advocate role, as I already said, would act to support the service manager for housing. It is, apologies, a new and unlegislated scope of service delivery. The county would still be relying on the City of London, but this role would focus on Middlesex County. And as I said, the two primary budget components would be just hiring the person and then some programming that they would. I do want to be really clear on this, though, that the money that in this business case is not funding directly bricks or mortar. It's not building of buildings. The outcomes might result or lead to bricks and mortar, but this case is not suggesting that the county either build or fund municipal projects to build buildings.
But that may come out of their work, the request down the road, it's possible.
It may. The dedicated housing advisor would work with the service manager, work with the CMHC, local municipalities, the not-for-profit housing providers, would emphasize building those partnerships, supporting both anything that county councils direct staff to do, but also working with local municipalities. And a big part of it is sort of just talking the talk, knowing when a new CMHC program is announced, being immediately available and able to jump on it and then help private sector people, not-for-profits, municipalities sort of pursue those opportunities. So when we looked at the way we've worded it is potential housing programming. So when we sort of dove into this, we did a best practices review of what others are doing in this sphere. And what this document doesn't do is say, council, we recommended, we really think you should do these things, but we wanted to give you ideas of what could happen. The goal would be to bring the right person on board that has this expertise. Then, how do I say this? I guess often you set up a program and then you develop some KPIs to measure it. I think what we're recommending is get the right person on board, look at what KPIs with council, what do you want the outcomes to be? And then that person will, with council, develop the programs to achieve those ends. So the report does give 4 examples, if you will. Housing development or housing summit. That's often something that municipalities do if they enter into this area to sort of raise the understanding and put everyone on the same platform. Portable housing benefits, additional residential units, and then community improvement plan housing supports. So maybe I'll just, if it's okay, Chair, I'll just go through the third one. This is something that municipalities are entering into. We know about additional residential units and the emphasis in land use planning on allowing these things. And the thought here is that it's sort of low-hanging fruit. It's easier, it's more cost-effective, it's dispersed across the community. So if you're able to, with some forgivable loans or some supports, develop a program that, for instance, creates 30 units across the county, as opposed to finding the money to build a 30-unit building in one location. So that's just one example of the kind of program that others are doing, certainly in Ontario and also in Southwestern Ontario. The next section is the KPIs. Again, measuring this, we looked at other jurisdictions. These are examples of what they're doing. And I think I would just like, if I can, highlight 2 areas. First of all, it's really clear that some of these KPIs, the City of London, as the housing authority, would have to provide this information. So the number of clients housed from the by name list. Like only they can provide that information to council. We've had preliminary discussions with city staff and they're open to that and figuring out what that would look like, but that would be something that we'd have to establish, council would establish, and then we'd have to, it may not be something that we can do ourselves in-house. The other thing I would highlight is just housing is one of those areas that, and you know this, that it is qualitative and it's not just measuring the numbers. I think whatever program is developed by council, something as simple as when we did the attainable housing study, going out with a Tim Hortons card and sitting down with someone in Strathroy and just chatting with them about their experience. I think we'll have to try to develop something that includes that as there's probably a better way of saying that, but as a kind of a flexible KPI. So that's sort of what, at least at a staff level, what we're considering. The next section is financial analysis. So I maybe pass that off to Cindy if you'd like.
Sure, thanks very much, Dirk. So if you look at the year 1 description, So we have what we anticipate for the staff salary and benefits, and that's where you see about 160,000 we have identified there. We have operations, about 15,000.
Sorry, where are you?
Oh, sorry, in the middle of the business
98.
case.
98, it's 98.
98.
Now that we're one short, thanks.
Okay, everybody there, page 98? Okay. So again, pointed out, there's the staffing, salary and benefits, and then there's the operations, which talks about 15,000. And Dirk did a great example talking about maybe what something like that could be used for, having community conversations, travel, all that kind of fits within that category. And programming is where we talked about those initiatives, and we have that in there, 325,000 for a total of 500,000. And again, we're trying to come to council. This is a 1 year, this is a 1 year budget, but we're wanting you to think about 3 years. And so we're asking for a 1 year commitment, but we're really saying we really do think this needs to be a 3 year process. It takes time. It takes time to find the right individual and work with all of the lower tier municipalities, find the best practices, and really understanding what funding initiatives are out there and that partnerships that will happen. It will take time. And we do think within 3 years, we will have some KPIs that we can talk about. We'll be able to have some best practices and then be able to understand what the bigger picture is and what it looks like more long-term. So I know that from my desk, and Joe gets it and Dirk gets it, we get a lot of questions from local municipality asking about housing, and we try to answer the best that we can. We try to coordinate with the city, get them to respond to things as part of the service manager. But it's a lot of work, and you really need to understand that housing dynamic. I know even when we go to some of these meetings with the City of London and all the housing group, and they go through their lingo, and I think we've been through a few of them where we have enough lingo already, but trying to learn all of that housing lingo, and especially understanding new programs that come, how do you get this funding, what criteria do you need to get that funding? It's very complex. So if we could have somebody that is an expert in that, and they're focused on that, and then, like I said, directly working with the City of London as a service manager, I think it would be a huge benefit to our local municipalities. I know that the issue of housing is very hot topic. Everywhere we hear about it. We hear about some great successes in our neighboring communities. And I know I get a lot of questions from council. Why is that county doing that project, and why aren't we doing that project? And I have to remind council that we're not the service manager. So we don't get provincial funding in order to do those programs. So we're kind of, I feel, maybe a little bit a step behind because we're not able to do those programs. We would love to be able to provide and assist and do that, but we have to be able to figure out how we can leverage other dollars, especially that provincial and federal dollars that's out there. So we're really hoping that an expert could really work with our local municipalities and be able to bring those programs and services that you're hearing from the community that you need.
Thank you. So I'll look to committee members. Go
Are
ahead,
there
Sue.
these positions exist in other areas? Or is this sort of this housing advisor position that you're asking for? Is this a position that exists in other areas, like other municipalities or counties?
Through the chair to the councillor, I do believe in some form they would look something like this, absolutely. Anyone that is a service manager. So if we would look at like Huron, or if we're gonna look at St. Thomas or the City of London, they would have individuals that just focus on this.
Well, I'm just anticipating Councilor Grantham's request, because he is very interested, and I think he's more interested in the bricks and mortar, so I'm just trying to come up with a bit of a strategy in terms of helping him to understand that this would be of value. So it's working with this person who has the experience and expertise to possibly work with the lower tier municipalities in order to get funding so that there could be some bricks and mortar that take possibly. I'm just trying to think out loud, because I think we're going to have to address this question when we ask them.
So through the chair to councillor, you're absolutely right. And I think it was really important that Dirk pointed out this isn't bricks and mortar, because again, we are not the service manager. And we don't have those right now. We don't have those kind of dollars that we can provide to you to be able to service that. I think the value, because I have met with that mayor very frequently, just around housing and the community and the need out there. And I think it's one step forward. I think when they were doing their last building, I know that they tried to reach out a little bit to our service manager. And the service manager was very busy at that time and provided some supports, but I think this individual would have been able to help them a lot more in being able to leverage some of that additional funding they may have needed at that time. So I do see a great benefit for not only Strathroy Caradoc, but all the other local municipalities. I would say myself, and Dirk, you may be able to comment too, is probably almost every single municipality we've had some conversation just around housing and how do we go about it and how do we leverage and what do you need. So I do see a real benefit, but you're absolutely right. The bricks and mortar is a big discussion and it is needed in our community, absolutely.
Just to follow up, like, I think the additional residential unit, the homeowner supports for me is really tangible. That, because when I was thinking Strathroy Caradoc, I was thinking not every other municipality is in the same position as Strathroy Caradoc, right? Like some of us, right, full services or even owning land and that sort of thing. So something like that, really resonated with me when I saw it in the business case, so. Yeah, that's positive, thank you.
I'll just jump on that comment too. For me, this is the additional residential units, it's a dispersion of capital across the whole county as opposed to a concentration in one urban settlement area. And there is need across the county. I think if we had unlimited budget, we could target all the markets that we need to hit, but I don't think everyone can participate unless we do distributed model. And I think the board, were you talking about measurements? The KPIs are quantitative, but you're thinking there's qualitative measures that we need to consider as well. I think, am I reading between the
Yes,
lines?
I think in a program like this,
Yeah,
more
it's the
so than a lot
qualitative
of what
piece
we
too.
do, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so that's all I have. Go ahead, Kathy.
I just think the benefit of having a dedicated person looking like with a Middlesex County lens on, to the point that was made about, you know, when there's new programming from CMHC that's announced, then you've got a dedicated person in Middlesex that can deal with, you know, Middlesex private sector, Middlesex partners, advocating for, you know, investment that could be made in the county. That, let's face it, the City of London just doesn't have the resources to be able to be doing that. So when we think about how we're going to communicate, or how you're going to communicate this to colleagues when budget's presented, it's those sort of, like, those things have to be put in place before actually, you know, the bricks and mortar comes. And I can see the bricks and mortar coming with having a dedicated person, yeah.
And we're not to our third business case yet, but this role could be pivotal too in supporting, you know, if we are gonna expand industrial base, then we need housing for, like for potential support for employment. You know, this is hand in hand, like this is, even though it's a separate business case, I can see it overlapping into the third area.
Through the chair, absolutely. And we have had conversations before between Kara, Dirk, and myself, and worked with some lower municipalities if we hear interest in the developer or some other agency that's interested in housing. So we have had some of those conversations. I think an individual like this would help to further solidify some of those conversations and partnerships.
Yeah, so I don't see it just in the social service lane, I see it overlapping, so I think that's important to acknowledge.
And we have a person who's already aware of all the variables on the ground in each area, potential opportunities, all the potential hiccups that could happen, all the checks that are in the box everywhere. And when the door opens, they can just go in, so.
Well, and I mean, realistically, we don't have the expertise or capacity right now at the county for that, so it's a void, current void.
Okay, anything else? Okay, in that case, thank you for that update and presentation and information on the housing piece. We have a motion before us that the Attainable Housing Implementation Plan, Housing Advocate, Funding Business Case presentation be received for information. I have Michelle and Sue. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. And now, that was this one, that one. Oh, wait a minute, are we done? We're done.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, I was turning the pages. Okay, well, so we got a lot of social pieces done today. That's great. So we're talking about meeting tomorrow again, and then we'll see about the next day. That'll be coming out. So,
Are we gonna go through this at all?
oh, I don't know. Did you want to speak to, that's for FYI or?
That's FYI.
That's FYI, I
Yes.
thought so. Okay. All right, so I think that's the end of the formal presentations and content for today. So I would look for a motion to. Oh, sorry.
Chair, just before we end, just to clarify, are we waiting until tomorrow to decide on Friday's meeting? Or would you like to cancel Friday's meeting?
Can we do that right now? Or do we need to check with anybody that was not here today?
I have checked with
Oh, okay.
the clerk, and I have a motion.
So we can? Okay, so we'll look for a motion to,
So I have the wording.
oh, you have the wording.
So it's that the Friday, December 13th, 2024 budget committee meeting be canceled, and that the budget discussion scheduled for the December 13th budget committee meeting be added to the Monday, December 16th budget committee agenda.
Perfect, thank you. And I have Sue's moving it, Michelle seconding, all in favor, and that is carried. Okay, thank you for that, Rebecca. So now we can look to have a motion to adjourn. It is 12:59. I think mover, thank you, Michelle, seconded by Sue, all in favor, and that is carried. Then till
That's fast.